we have our Dread Mob list from David Cottam. Now, David, I was going to actually put your name on here like I normally do for people, but I actually liked your list name for once, as I felt like it was a very nice, simplified personification of what your list was going after, and I appreciated that because you said what you meant and you did what you meant, what you said, right? So shout out to you. I wanted to keep that, but this is David Cottam's with his 4-1 Dread Mob list, and his own archetype. Boy, this might be the 3 damage get archetype. We'll see in the future. But let's start off. We have two Big Mech, good old Big Mechs. Now, you guys, what we talked about when the point changes, I brought to everyone's attention, as some of you guys probably already doing on your own because you're some cunning gets, is shock attack gun might simply cost too much for his keyword and its offensive buffing potential. So you might need to just pay for the discount version of him. The Big Mech with shock attack gun is, better with its AP, more spiking potential and damage, but it also is the random factor, which can hurt you once in a great while. But there's also the factor of, let's say you're going into demons, which are somewhat popular, and you make them take battle shock. They might be healing themselves. So it's not like universally 100% always the best option. And in this case, people are like, well, I'll just get for the flat 3 custom Mega Blasters, and then I got the melee diversity of this unit will shoot and it'll be able to charge. Some people will ask me without watching the video, check out the videos when I talk about these things as well. But in short, the tank busters benefit the Big Mech as much as the Big Mech benefits them, right? The Pulsar Rocket, really is awesome. Him giving them the keyword is great, and then the reroll 1. So and he wants the +1 to wound from them and the +1 to hit for shooting. So it's a cross-living example of getting along. And then we have the Big Mech with shock attack gun, and he is with the Looters. And this is only a 5-man because GW, like he always does, James Workshop, it's a little heavy-handed and had our looters get hit. I am not in the fan club of a bunch of 10-man looters anymore in my Dread Mob list, but typically a nice 10-man unit with a Big Mech with shotgun are generally universal with Get Finder goggles. Makes a huge difference that you have Get Finder goggles. That's why I will only use one, but it's somewhat understood as like a staple of detachment. So I like that he actually swapped it up and just said, I'm going to go straight 5 boys. That does make it so that unit can become susceptible to Overwatch. But what's going on here is that the reroll hits that are given to the shock attack gun are the value. And when it comes down to Overwatch potential as well, you just need the rerolls for your Big Mac with shock attack gun for that 5 Ludas. And a lot of the time, the shock attack gun's the one that's doing the damage because people can't pop defensive buffs as well. You're already ignoring cover. If it's an armor or something like that, somebody enemy vehicle moving onto an objective, whether it's a little weako transport, like hurt transporter or something, and it's susceptible to that much AP and ignoring cover. A lot of the time, people would just be like, it's fine. I'll just pop lethal right here. I'll press the button because you're probably going to kill me right now with this little trash unit anyways. So I'll get a second activation out of it. I'll pop lethals. And then in this case, because if I just land any of these, it goes straight through your armor. And then I just roll D6s and you're toast, So that's how that really a lot of the time works. But I like that he was risky enough to put the 5 points, the 5 model discount on there. Now, you'll see a lot of this list as being brave and unique and different, which is what we promote here. I show you the list to encourage you, to get you to expand your mind, to get your squig juices, flowing after you ate the squig, right? You're trying to get creative out here by looking at these lists as an orc player, and you take your own identity, your own preferences, and your meta into consideration. And this took his own meta and the meta as a whole into consideration. And I really love it. But last, he had a mech as his warlord. Of course, this is because you kind of want to you very much don't want to have a mech, a warlord that's easy to kill for the Imperial Knights matchup. We're going to be giving him a 5-up, feel no pain as soon as he dies. So if it's typically your war boss and your war boss goes out there with the 10-man unit of knobs, for example, this is my war boss. Well, now you're either going to just disconnect him from that unit and make that unit kind of useless, or you're going to still invest it and then give him a 5 feel no pain. So there's great value in just having a little secret baby war mech boss like that. And he does have something to buff with it. Not a bunch of stuff, but he has just enough. And keep in mind, the mech can add, into certain units in the game, which isn't always explored anymore. So we have a 10-man unit of the boys, because you know how 10 boys are just great utility, how they fight along the field, give you more presence, great skirmishers, they can throw grenades, sticky, all that good stuff. I'll never bat an eye on anybody adding at least 1 boys units to the list, right? Then we have 4 battle line minimum size Gretchens. Absolutely love my Gretchen units. Always constantly winning me games. Then we have 2 trucks, simply 2. I really like the mix up here and the choice choice selection of minimalist killer characters, 4 characters that is quite cheap amount of points invest in his character, so he can invest them in everything else in his utility pieces and his killing potential. And only 2 trucks, didn't go overboard. I like when you can only fit 2 trucks. They pretty much take up the nice staging locations, and they become great value, and it's only a couple of them, and there's a bunch of other armor integrated in this list and mixed throughout it. Speaking of, which is something we haven't seen in maybe a year, 9 months, something like that, is a Death Dread. Let's go. Ooh, for the Death Dread. I know some of you get, you're like, man, I ain't never seen one of those boys. He does the attack on my shelf. I know. I was taking him for a spin and I rejected it. I mean, I not rejected it. I regretted it to a degree where I was testing him out. But shout out to my Git here, because he has a Death Dread with 4 Dread Claws. He went full in, baby boys. I appreciate that. 3 damage Gitz, like you said. 2 5-man units of Flash Gitz, because there's absolutely no comparison to another support unit, versatile unit than a Flash Gitz for your SWAT team, right? I am scraping points off the bottom of the barrel to not take a Burner Boy over a Flash Gitz unit. That's how significant the difference is in these units' utility. So I absolutely love it. Gorkanaut, he's of course gives something for the mech to love and support. There are some list styles where people will add the morphed up mech to a unit and then give that unit the access to the keyword, the button for Dread Mob. So cool. Now we have 2 3-man units of killer cans with rockets. Whoa, you guys know I love the rockets. You guys know that I love the killer cans. But I've always advised it's like just one big 6-man brick that you really to invest in. When I did my killer cans video, wasn't certain about 3-mans, wasn't like poo-pooing them, just was never certain for me. But that's why I always say, do what you guys got to do, like David did, and get creative. And he adjusted, he adapted, he learned, and he said, I'm just going to bring a couple 3-man units and have a bunch of different things I could throttle with. And if I choose not to, it's all good, because they're solid on their own for 125 on investment. A lot of time people tell me, well, cans just fall over, they die. And it's very much true. I do say a lot of time I use reserves, and it can be true. But a lot of times you can get an over investment into them on something like this 3-man unit in order to kill them, get the enemy out of position, or to even kill a 6-man unit. And then the amount of versatile 3 damage you get is unlike any other Ork unit, especially in Dread Mob, where the volume of these 3 damage that you have in this one unit is unmatched in our codex. So love the killer cans. Check out that video if you haven't seen it. First, the 5 looters, like I said, they do have a custom Mega Blaster, though, because I love that when you're doing Overwatch. Like I said, you pop a lethal, you're going to cover. Now you have the shock attack gun, and you have the mech, and maybe he's getting the lethals as well, and you're going to finish something off. So the custom Mega Blaster is my preference, because when it's those times to shoot, I want that straight up 3 shots. No, I'm not D3, not worth it. If I get 1 shot off of it, that's not enough to get value for my looters and to fish for the button, 6s, critical hits on 6s. So custom Mega Blaster all day, I'll take that risk. If I blow up, that was for Gork and Mork's pleasure. Then we have 3 mech guns. Yes. Ooh, mech guns. Guys, shout out to you, David, because I was running mech guns, months ago, and when we didn't have tank busters yet. And so I understand the appeal. Their damage, their strength 9, -3, 3 damage. You could put a character on them to get them to reroll 1s. You use strats on them so they can reroll the whole hit roll. They can pop big shells for bigger Gitz. You can even stick that shock attack gun on that 3-man, that mech gun unit, which is totally fine for some matchups, or he might have already be doing that the whole time and not put him with the looters, and he maybe just lets the looters be on their own, or he lets the baby mech go with the 5-man looter unit. But you can stick the shock attack gun on that mech gun unit, do reroll hits, big shells for bigger Gitz, and now you're getting the value of the full rerolls to hit, +1 on your shock attack guns and all your smasher guns. And then he's ignoring cover. So you're -3 AP ignoring cover, throwing 4 damage shots down the field. So if the enemy doesn't have just an air 4-up invuln, those mech guns are crashing them out, boys. They're just picking them up left and right. Elite infantry. If you don't even need to pop big shells or bigger Gitz, you're just popping reroll hits, and then the smasher guns are going off. They got blast. So a lot of the time people are just like, that's pretty cool. Some people will take a big mech because you can walk through terrain at that point. So hey, maybe in a different, maybe I'm wrong and he has a big mech on one of these units, or the whole possibility of synergy among these units that have cross pattern capable attachments means it can be matchup dependent. If you're like, I don't need the AP benefit on my mech guns, well then I'll just put them on my looters, so my looters can possibly pick something up an Overwatch turn, or from down range where it's completely out of range. So like, because they have 48-inch range, right? And so that's what I'm saying. This list to me has just the versatility of, well, I can cross-plat some of these unit characters if I want and still have utility about them. So absolutely love this list. I was highly impressed, David, overall, just by the list creativity itself, not just your performance. Your performance just got the attention. You know what I'm saying? And everybody knows that that's what we're here for, is just for the fun of it. Another thing to check out is our sponsor, the Baron of Dice. They make high-quality custom dice. If you enjoy our content and want to show some love, check out the Baron of Dice custom dice, including WAAAGH Tactics official dice. To support us, use our discount code in the description for 5% off, because nobody likes taxes. And of course, shout out to Forgefire Gaming. They offer competitive terrain sets that I use at home that comes pre-painted with slotted acrylic bases, allowing for easy building removal and measuring and alignment with it itself. Check it out in the description, and check out our paint competition. This month we have the Stampa, so you can get a set of those WAAAGH Tactic dice. So let's look at his 4-1 performance. I think, yeah, and I do have the player pack over here, so I can tell you, where is it over here? Yep, I have the player pack over here, so I can read off at least what the missions were and deployments and such. So let me do that. Shout out the comment. The chats don't worry, I see you Gitz. I'll get them to you right after this list, after we go through this. But oop, I clicked him again. So let's look at his matchups, his path to victory. Of course, it's always important. Context is important, guys. When you look at all these just straight general win rates where you don't know what happened, who they played, but then you look at it and you realize, well, they played into no one I regularly have to play into. So I'm having a completely different experience, and I'm in a completely different meta. I can't universally just plug and play this, right? Sometimes you want context, and that's why we do it, even if it's a little boring for the Gitz. But bear with me, because we're out here for the Great Wall. Now, of course, first off, we starting with the Blood Angels, Liberator, Assault Group, War the Two Snatcher. And then we have Captain with the Rage Fueled Warrior, another Captain but with Jump Pack, a Chaplain with Speed of the Primarch, Commander Dante, and then a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon. No Sanguinor. No Sanguinor. No, none. Just make sure you guys heard me. Sometimes I misspeak, you know what I'm saying? Battle Line, Assault Intercessor Squad. I like that in Blood Angels for sure. Yeah, and this was Liberator Assault Group. So those boys are picking up Orc boys for sure with +2 strength. Then we have Intercessors, 1 Impulsor, 2 big bricks of Blade Guard Veteran, which as someone who actually kind of likes Blade Guard, they're in my little baby Imperial Fist army. This is like the coolest attachment they can be in, probably on 40k, but they're really, really good at picking up Orcs because they get up to strength 6 typically, and that could be important. And we'll talk about that when we look real quick at the rest of the list. We have Incursor Squad, followed by 3 3-man units of Sanguinary Guard, 2 5-man units of Jump Pack Veteran Squad, and then 2 Vindicator. Now, of course, we all know these Sanguinary Guard are quite annoying with their easy staging, ability to fly over you, deliver great, reliable damage onto you. But that's why this list is damage 3 all over the table comes into play. You can see that all of these Space Marines are highly susceptible to not only the strength thresholds of our of our Dread Mob list, but a unit of Blade Guard veterans would take that whole Blade Guard veterans to kill those 3 kilocans a lot of the time if they're not popping more strat investment because they're only wounding them on 4s. The weird ablative wounds of the kilocans, and if they whiff or another kilocan's heroics or attempts to help them, well, they're just all 3 damage shots. If the other 3-man unit comes up the field, they can shoot blast into them at 3 damage, then run and punch into them with 3 damage, wounding them on 2s the entire time with sustains, right? And then it's like, well, oops, that one unit just started to immediately pick up my Blade Guard veteran in double phase activation and possibly my character. So I really like what this list comes with. Now you have to be delicate because it is kind of slow, right? You are susceptible and vulnerable to them with like I said, the kilocans being slow. But once these units get into a fight, there's this, once these in Sanguinary Guard, these Jump Pack Marines, either they end on an objective, they could be shot by Ludas, or they've made a charge into those same kilocans, which a lot of time will act as kind of like a bait, with the flash kits will, to get the Jump Pack units to come out. Now you have to deal with, well, if you do your movement wrong, I can do a reactive move with all these baby grots and get in the way, because you don't really have a volume of firepower on your Blood Angels list. It's just Vindicators, they're a little random. You don't have a great Overwatch target to clear screens in that kind of way. So you can see where he can take advantage of, I have a lot of units. When my units do make contacts with your really baby soft units of Space Marines, then you're getting picked up. And So I appreciate that. He has a lot of versatile damage into that Blood Angels list, even though the Blood Angel list can definitely knock his teeth out. That's one of the things that as an Orc player that you got to get good and creative with. Staging, fundamentals, restricting, and knowing when to give them combats, and then understanding you can pick them up because we got the assets. They got the tricky pants. Then we go into the second game. Well, speaking of tricky pants, we have some of the new Gitz on the scene. We have the Thunderwolf. Sorry. We have the Space Wolf. So let's go through this real quick. We have with the new Space Wolves, we have Arjak Rockfist, Logan Grimnar. Not on his little sleigh. He's just solo little Terminator boy. Ragnar Blackmane, Lieutenant with combi weapon. Wolfguard Battle Leader. I used to say that all the time when I first played Blood Angels. I'd be like, Wolfguard Battle Leader, and I'd be killing them. Then we have a 10-man unit of Blood Angels, Blood Claws, 5-man unit of Scout Squads, 2 3-man unit of Head Takers, followed by a 6-man unit of Head Takers, a 5-man unit of Wolfguard Terminators with a variety of data sheet, weapons because they're unique. Shout out to Space Wolf Terminators. 1 10-man unit of Wolfen. The Wolfen are absolute value right now. Flat damage 3, anti-monster 3+. What if could have been. They great movement, inherent 4-up invones. So they're eating good with that. I've appreciated Thunderwolf Cavalry. I appreciate wrecking them because at least they're coming at you. Nothing fancy to them, but real glow up on that data sheet, which would be a problematic for variety of units you see on the list that we were looking at for our boy David. 3 3-man units of Thunderbolt Cavalry. That's absolute value. I was talking about the Killer Cans. I feel like they're good value for what they bring, for their ablative wounds, kind of a mixture of damage and defense and the investment from the enemy for their point cost. Well, think of that for the Thunderwolf Cavalry. The invones, the toughness, the ablative. No, they don't. I think they're for even wounds, I guess, at that case. But it is ablative because it's among multiple models for that point cost. So quite absolutely cheap. They're paying like 33 points per model. And then they don't need character buffs and support. They're just good how they are, fighting for objective, winning skirmishes, taking the initiative with the skirmishes. Orcs don't like that, right? Unit of Flash Gitz isn't necessarily going to always do well into these Thunderwolf Cavalry. Between how their weapons work and typically what our advantages against other skirmishing units, and then as well as going into the Killer Cans, you can just ride the 4-up invones and hope that you get lucky, as well as tank one of those Crockett's or so. You're not wounding them as well, but they're great points value and they can eat through your cans too. So you can already see that they have a lot of actual kind of trading, fighting between the Wolf Takers, staging units, heroic intervening units between the Terminators and the big Terminator brick with Arjak Rockfist or probably Grimnar or the Wolfen. And then just a little bit of fire support with 1 Ballistus Dreadnought and 1 Impulsor. The Transforce gets around the field. So this unit actually, because it's Saga of the Beast, and you actually ended up bringing Arjak, he does have the potential to actually, typically, I would say, Space Wolves don't do too great into high toughness stuff like Gorkanauts, for example. But in this case, you can. And typically, whereas Orc players were looking at Space Marines, we're either saying, well, you guys don't have invones or you're low toughness, so my volume is kind of getting through you quite easily. This list isn't necessarily the most or least volume. But what it is it doesn't have a consistent good strength for picking up all of the of the early turn cheap trading pieces of the Space Wolves. But typically with Space Marines, well, if you throw a 5-man unit of whatever out there as a Space Marine, as long as it's not like Blade Guard, a 5-man unit of Flash Gitz going to tear it up, right? You're going to be really confident. But now Flash Gitz on a Thunderwolf Cavalry unit or Flash Gitz into Killer Cans, now it's not happening. They can spike invones. You're not wounding them as well. So this would end up being a more difficult trading game. And then, of course, when these guys are exposed, you're shooting at mech guns at them. They could just tank it possibly. So they have a little bit of that oddness value, take initiative value, and then grade up trading pieces values here. So this was a rough one, and I can understand that. So 39-point game there. David ended up losing that round 2, but then he went to round 3, and the rest of the game is quite hot, ready to go. Oh, sorry, I was too excited. I was too hot and ready to go because I should have mentioned this earlier. This was day 1, layout 1 or 2, right, /2. We don't know which ones they were. Both of them are recommended for the first day of missions. But his first mission was mission D for GW. Tipping point, Scorched Earth. Orcs typically do appreciate Scorched Earth. Real aggro. Sometimes enemies want to play defensive so they can burn at the end. But Orcs like it, not too creative. Tipping point, pretty solid deployment for the Orcs. And then GW layout 1 and 2. Maybe 2 is a little bit more shooty, right? A lot of us like layout 1. That one's very powerful if you're an Orc player for the most part. Then we have round 2, which is when he played into the Space Wolf player. This was mission N, as Crucible of Battle deployment and Hidden Supplies as the mission. So this one not as linear. The Space Wolves actually have I would really appreciate if it was something like Search and Destroy, maybe even. But Crucible of Battle can get a little bit weird for deployment between the cans, the Gork, the mech guns, the truck. And we don't know. Maybe layout 2, layout 1. You would think this is just a melee matchup, but considering he does have a little bit of guns, you do want to respect them just enough, but it's really about a staging potential to come out and smash our vehicles. So I would see that as being not ideal. Of a mission and a layout for a matchup. Deployment for our layout, our list, our matchups. So I kept saying layout. Then we go into Search and Destroy Linchpin. This is mission J, which is Search and Destroy and Linchpin. Now, this is what we like to see, which is what we're doing with this third game that we're going into, which is his game 3, where he goes into the Meta Bullies Death Guard. I think I went back to my boy's list. Shout out to my boy right here. So he went to this. His third game was actually into Death Guard, and like I said, that was, which we appreciate, Search and Destroy, Linchpin, and then Mission J, which is actually important because these guys like to run away and stick their home objective. And that's one thing about Dread Mob that I wish we had sometimes, that I like as attack pieces. Like, oh man, I wish I could get kind of your backfield, because then you can full commit everything to me. But it's all good. Let's look at this Death Guard meta list real quick. Let me see. Let's look at something up. Shout out to the chat. We'll get to you guys in a second. We'll get to you guys after this. Don't worry. You guys, I'm excited. You guys are awesome. By the way, everybody's been doing great. So we have Biologus Putrifier. Which one was this? Virulent Vectorum. Does that mean toilet or something in Death Guard? So we have Biologus Putrifier, Demon Prince of Nurgle, Revoltingly Regeneration. That's the guy who heals himself, or if you don't kill him or something. Forgot that one. Lord of Contagion with the Furnace Plague. Another Lord of Contagion, a Lord of Virulence, followed by a Malignant Plague Caster. One big brick of Plague Marines, which it's one Rhino, pretty much a stable piece. Stick the Malignant Plague Caster on there. They could stick a Biologus Putrifier on there as well. Then they got all these special weapons. Jump out of the Rhino. The Rhino gives them buffs, so they're even better at wounding, I believe. I think reroll wounds, something like that. I gotta check again. But we continue. 2 Predator Destructors with autocannons, which is kind of a more interesting, not as common tech piece. 1 Chaos Spawn, which I also thought was kind of interesting, not seen too often. 2 units of Death Shroud Terminators, followed by 3 floated bloat drones with heavy blight launchers, and 2 10-man units of Poxwalker. So I haven't ran the same list, like I said, as our boy here, David. But I have run Dread Mob with cans and Titanic and models into Death Guard, and it feels pretty good, especially when you're running all these damage 3 into these Gitz. Death Guard doesn't necessarily do good into killing Gorkanot, for example, right? So he can tack enough offensive buffs with his Death Shroud Terminators, but it is going to be the focus of his army on that turn. A lot of the time, the Death Guard players will be thinking, I'm going to take -1 to hit or ballistic seal if I get in contagion range. Well, that's where you as an Orc player are happy to have so many Gretchen on this list and truck, because me personally as well, which we always talk about, if you're fighting Death Guard, meet them at that midline and push them off of it, because they're going to be dropping in 6 inches doing their shenanigans. But also you want to start touching their drones, you want to start touching stuff that doesn't fall back, shoot and do anything, and you also want to get in the way of the Poxwalkers a lot of the time, because you don't want them getting up close and personal to what they want to be in contagion range of. So that's where I really had value in having so many bullies, right? I mean, Grots, I've taken just units of Grots and just straight up advanced them forward. The enemy wants to move forward somewhere, then I just reactive move my Grots, or of course I let them know, but I'm like, I reactive move and I'm going to just stop the next move at the unit that's trying to move, for example, right? Or sometimes people just don't even want to invest in killing all the Grots, and some leftover Grots remain, and you go charge the bloat drone on or you come out on the bloat with some more of your Grots on the wall, and you run into a bloat drone. They only got 3 punches. They can't do nothing to you. So it's not an easy matchup by any means, but it's not a hopeless match. It's one I'm trying to poke out here. There's definitely a lot of play, and the Killicans played a big role in picking up something like Death Shroud, picking up 10-man units of plague marines. That's where the mech guns would be really nasty as well. Tank busters for even possibly popping the predator destructors, which typically we don't have a lot of opportunity to do. But it's all, and typically we're like, well, mission 3 is Ork's favorite. But if you're playing Dreadmon, you don't have infiltrators, which we've spoken about in the past here, that if you're playing Dreadmob, you're kind of slow and you're kind of deployed in a little corner, right? And you're going to do some reserves, probably a can or something. Sometimes they're working out though. And in that case, no infiltration, no jumping abilities or anything like that. You're just going to have to kind of just make your way out there and hope you go first, take position. Was a 61 point game right here. I'm clicking my tab for, like I said, linchpin, which typically, linchpin can go either way because you're fighting for, you're only getting objectives in the middle for your score. And a lot of the time, these guys are going to be able to push each other off it and delete it, which might affect the primary a lot of the, well, does affect the primary a lot of the time, even though Orks like to play that kind of game. And this one, well, they can knock you off it and with their killing power, but a lot of times they're not going to also be able to keep it as well. And as long as you keep that same idea of I'm pushing you further back and I'm choosing the ground we fight this initiative on, then they're not scoring their secondary. And that's pretty good. And you do kill them just enough with Dreadmob, from what I've seen, that because you're not relying on just punching them, and you have a bunch of damage 3 and high strength for their odd toughness values, like on their Death Shroud and their little plague boys. Everything is a viable target across the field for that army matchup, right? Everything is susceptible to getting popped, like the predators, the bloat drones from your tank busters, whatever. Anything, he has to be scared. All has damage 3, even a dumb Death Dread. Though I did take a 4-arm Death Dread into the Terminator unit, and he killed absolutely no one and almost got clapped back by just 2. So you let me know, David, how'd your Death Dread do? If you're out there somewhere, you chat sometime with us, community, that'd be pretty great, because I took my Death Dread out, and my Death Dread did not do well into the Death Guard matchup. He totally whipped. He was like swinging in the air. But great job, 61-point win to the Meta Bullies. And we move on to the 4th matchup, which is, I'm having too much fun with this, you guys. Should I hurry up? Oh, we're getting late on this, where I'll move up. Where he's going into the Chaos Knight. Let's go. He had another meta bully here. Not, the typical 6 giants, but still quite potent list. We have 2 Knight Abominants, one with the blade of Celebratory, and then 1 Knight Despoiler, followed by 2 Rampagers and a little baby knight, War Dog Executioner, by 3 3-man units of Nurglings. Now, what I would say though, right? Hopefully, I think how this went is either A, the Nurgling guy didn't put them to tar pit, the parking lot, as we like to talk about a lot of the time, right? Where people will sometimes take their Nurgling units, throw them up to hold the enemy back as they can take the initiative of them. I think they're more to reject other people's infiltrators. So in that case, I'm not sure if he would throw them forward, but if he went first and he was able to throw these forward, could hypothetically move block and tar pit something like a Dreadmob list. So keep that in mind as we go through it. Now this was day 2 as we did this one. So this was layout 4 and 6. Not sure what he played on, like which layout. I just know that 6, it is kind of a hybrid. There are some decent staging places to fight. Like sometimes the middle's all right. Near your natural expansion is kind of decent to jump out of, but there's also a lot of open ground and cross firing angles. So keep that in mind. But the mission was mission O, followed by with Crucible of Battle and Terraform. And remember, it's new Terraform, right? New Terraform. So you can terraform, and then someone can remove the Terraform, make it their own Terraform. So I haven't played into Chaos Knights in their new meta. Yeah, I did play into Imperial Knights a few times. That was rough, of course. But I do understand the pressure that these guys bring off, speed, the -1 damage. They do make you take battle shocks, krump really hard. But Dreadmob is that one Ork detachment that can look at Knights and say, I can kill you outside of the wall. I can kill you outside of the wall. And when you close the distance on me, now I get 2 phases of activations. With each phase, I can kill you outside of the wall, right? And so the Knight does have fights first, but you have just enough assets and just enough damage. There's one Knight that has fights first, but you have just enough damage and multi-phase damage and assets to still win the mission on this. I don't see it out of the question that he could kill 2 big Knights a turn, maybe 1 big Knight early, and then carry on. Now, would take a little bit of luck, but keep in mind your tank busters aren't regular tank busters, maybe like Tactical Brigade, for example, where you're just going off the data sheet. You have the ability to get sustain on these tank buster shots, throttle damage to the roof. Your SMEC guns, like I said, reroll hits, big shells for bigger gets, damage 4, just chucking them down the field, right? And then you have the variety of your cans popping lethal, shooting rockets periodically. You have the Gorkanaut who can run in and finish off, or me myself, I've had games definitely where my Gorkanaut will pop lethal, be standing directly in front of the knight, and I won't be getting any cover, and pop lethal, shoot into him, boom, 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 puts just ablative, just put some more wounds on him, damage him down just from that, and then charge him, right? So there's so much just possibility. And of course, never forget the Death Dread. The Death Dread. Nah, the Death Dread is strength 12, right? A little baby Death Dread, get in there. He might pop off too. Not sure exactly how this game went, but there's a bunch of places there can be damage spiking potential. The custom mega blatches, D6 damage across the field everywhere, just sprinkled throughout the list as well, followed by a bunch of Gra OC bombs who can actually win on OC. And if he tries to sticky it with their typically, well, I have 5 sticky OC on the subjective. Like, yeah, I got 2 little idiot Grats over there. Snotty, Booger, and Butt Wrinkle. Go stand on that objective. Boom, you're set. So typically knights are pretty proud of their 5 OC sticky, but when you're playing against orcs, you can't be that proud of that because we got stuff everywhere. So that was an absolute great job by our boy. Pull that one out because he got a big old fat, oh my god, over here, big old fat 95-point win. My boy was terraforming up that field, you know what I'm saying? Love it. Absolutely great job there. Then we move on to his 5th game. So we can see here, right? When I said context matters, Gitz, right? Because some people might say, I see you at Arcane Asylum, that, might say, well, Dread Mob ain't that good. Just once in a while, and I can see why you're saying that. I'm not necessarily against you, but as we unfold and we look at the context and the results, you're getting consistent week out since the nerfs, and you've seen that he's gone into some of the meta bullies, and he's been able to pull it out. You know what I'm saying? So come on, guys, let's give Dread Mob some love, give us some credit. He does have the tools. We've been saying that on the channel. I don't give myself a lot of credit a lot of the time for anything because I don't deserve much. But in this case, in this community, we're on the Dread Mob mindset. We know what's up, right? And so shout out to you, David, because you definitely know what's up too. Because I'm digging this. I'm excited, and I'm glad another orc appearance was made with Dread Mob. And last but not least, we have the Salamander. So shout out to you right now for winning this game, because I went into Salamanders with a bunch of killer cans, and those flamers tore me up, and those Malthus tore me up. So let's look at this list real quick. We have Adrex Agatone. Shout out to that guy. I actually kind of like him. We have Captain and Gravisheimer. Remember, he helps Malta. A lot of time you'll throw him in a Blade Guard unit. Oh no, Vulcan will go in there. Okay. We'll see what happens. But Agrax allows them to shoot better, I think, with their Meltas. We have a Captain and Gravisheimer. I think this is one of the most slept on Space Marine units, all the 40k. But because a lot of time you see results from Ultramarines, they essentially have an Epic Hero version of this called Marnius Fatgar, right? So he's a lot of the time going to be their version of the Gravisheimer guy. Then we have Lieutenant with Champion of Humanity, Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and then Vulcan. He's dead. I had to do that for my Mander boys. So 1 Aggressor Squad. I'm pretty sure that's where the Gravis boy went with the Flame Gauntlets. Pretty sure they can max out those volume of shots, reroll wounds. They can get obnoxious. And then on Overwatch, absolutely terrifying if you're playing a basic Warhorde list or just trying to run right at them. Then we have the Blade Guard unit. This a lot of the time will be given by Vulcan Heastan. I believe he gives them like +1 strength to wound or something like that. I'd have to look at it again because I remembered and then I forgot from the other day. I feel like looking it up because I actually like this, and this was round 5. And I wonder if he'll get like a new model, because if you guys didn't know, I do have a weird little Imperial Fist army. Shout out to Volrax or whatever that guy. He's awesome. But yeah, I have a Blad, and they got my new Lysander coming out. So I wonder if Vulcan will get a new one. But goodness, look at that boy. He has a little soft body. He can. In your you have to select to shoot in your face. Sorry. So when he selects a unit within 24 inches, and he makes attack with either Tauren or Melta, you can re-roll the wound, and then he can do some OC stuff. And he has this cool little spear hitting on to strength 6 -2 damage. Okay, so yeah, he likes to go in kind of Blade Guard units, and then he can select someone to re-roll their Flamer wounds or Melta wounds. That's what I remember. It's been a while. 2 Eradicators, which are also getting buffed from being in Salamanders, getting another strength bit, putting up another threshold. 1 Gladiator Lancer, 2 Infernus Marines, Infiltrators, a Land Raider Redeemer, and then a Scout Squad with a Storm Speeder Hammer Strike. And then the mission for this one, before I forget, because I've been too excited recently. Like I said, it's either 4 or 6 on the layout. The mission is A, good old mission A, good old reliable, with a take and hold on tipping point deployment. So as for this list, though it is quite potent and its killing potential per unit, these guys were not durable. The Space Marine player will heavily rely on this Land Raider to deliver, whether it's I believe they put, is it the aggressors in there or just some eradicators? I don't remember exactly what went in there. That can go in there, but it's really just for bringing up its own flamer a lot of the time. And then it just kind of hoping you commit assets to it, and then it can come out with all that stuff and its melters and its flamers, because it wants to meet you in that mid table. They're really not that durable. You have a lot of stuff that's really good at killing them, and they had a Storm Speeder, which I think allows you to reroll a wound or ignore cover or something. But yeah, I do appreciate, and he has, oh, and how could I forget? Yeah, there's a 10-man unit of Infernus Marines. Let's go. Which, like I said, when I played it, I'm being straightforward, transparent here. I didn't play with them against them before. I had 18 kilocans that day. I was like, let's get it. Lay out 8 on the old one, and them flamers and melters messed me up. He was just picking up 1 can per melter. It was nasty. But I appreciate, but what I did remember is when anything was making contact with them, when I was, mitigating my damage and allowing stuff to survive and actually respond, I was picking stuff up left and right. Your ability, like I said, with that mech gun, where it's like, well, at that Land Raider, ignore cover, -3, shock attack gun, or tank buster, same thing. Maybe your tank buster unit adopted that shock attack gun and said, hey, I need you for this matchup, boy. Let me take out that Land Raider. Options. That's what I like about this list. And then a bunch of aggressors, terrified, petrified, just like the eradicators would be, or the Infernus Marines, or the Blade Guard veterans. All the damage 3 and the ability of all of our units on this list essentially to wound them on 2s and 3s that are trying to get into fights with them is terrifying, right? So I love it. I think that he just was an asset thing. Of course, he could lose stuff, maybe the Death Dread a little early, but once stuff starts popping out and they get exposed, they are not durable, and they're going to have to expose some Space Marine bodies to start clearing Gretchen, because a lot of time I was just hoofing some Gretchen up the field a little bit to try to start luring their stuff out. Boys getting in fights, flash kisses, and then boom, before you know it, their squishy bodies are on the open, and you're just shooting rockets down the field and charging them and picking them up and crumping. Whoa, let's go. So I appreciated that. So shout out to David. He pulled that one out with a 88-point victory. Let me show real quick. Too excited. 88-point win right there, my boy. So shout out to David Cottam. Let's go over his Dread Mob list one more time because I've been too excited. We have 3 damage Gitz, followed by the characters being 2 big mechs, shock attack gun, baby mechas, the Warlord, 10 boys, 4 minimum size units of Gretchen, followed by 2 trucks, 1 Death Dread with 4 claws, 2 5-man flash kits, 1 Gorkanaut, 3 kilocans, 2 3-man units kilocans, 5-man unit of Lutas with the custom Mega Blaster, 3-man mech gun unit, Storm Boys, and Tank Buster. If you're curious how to run this, how to run these units, my more in-depth understanding of these units and the synergy and how I would use them and strategy, maybe even deployment, we have a whole Dread Mob playlist because I'm a Dread Mob fan. I ran it a bunch, and so I gave it first priority, and I'm making my playlist for it. So make sure you guys check that out. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!